What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Taurean Rain Reloaded channel. And as you can see, I am not alone today. Actually, this is I guess you could say a special recording video collab, however you want to put it. I actually have in front of me a very important individual, a person who I actually kind of like came to know more so on social media than more than anything. We never really actually like converse I guess you could say face to face or online as far as like this goes, until they reached out to me and said that they wanted to come onto my platform to help promote their film and the streaming platform that they are a part of. And I said, sure, why not? I'm all about helping people out and to help push their message out there or push out whatever kind of endeavors that they have going on. And I believe this is probably going to be maybe like the third interview type based stream I've ever done on my channel. So I think that's a very good thing to get in on the ground floor. But without further ado, I want everybody to welcome Mr. Carltaise Ransom to the platform. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure y'all go ahead and show some love in the chat. I will definitely appreciate all of that. But with that being said, Mr. Ransom, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, my brother. Yeah, we actually, I don't know, we've been Facebook friends for like probably a decade or more.
Probably.
Uh, and we have talked on the phone about black issues before a couple of times in the past, but it's been several years since we spoke on the phone, stuff
Yeah.
like that, because we both been busy doing our thing and everything. And I really appreciate you, you know, accepting when I asked you, do you do interviews? Because I normally see you just doing your own thing, on different stories by yourself. And I appreciate you inviting me to come on here. Definitely.
Oh, no problem. And I'm actually glad that you reached out to me to actually want to do this. Cause like again, I don't do many interview type styles on my channel. Cause as you said, most of my stuff is pretty solo based, but whenever I can, find the time to
Yeah.
actually help people put their stuff out there or get their name out there so people can know who they are. Even if they do know who they are, then it's,
Right.
it all pretty much works itself out. But before we really get into everything, tell the people who you are. Like who is Carltaise Ransom?
Well, Carltaise Ransom is a native son of Baltimore, Maryland. Um, I come from a black family that, not perfect, but we show each other love. A black family that tells each other that we love each other. I come from one of those hugging black families. I have grandparents and my mother was born down south and stuff like that. So that's the type of family I come from. Um, I'm someone who always been into the arts ever since I was a little boy. I've always been into the arts, singing, acting, writing. I started writing songs and plays and film scripts and stuff like that when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and started singing when I was like 5, 6 years old and stuff like that. Now, as a little boy growing up, of course, I dreamed about winning the Oscar one day, winning the Grammys and shit like
Mhm.
that. Now, at this point, I really don't give a fuck about all that. If it happens, great. I won't turn it down, but that's not my main goal as far as like trying to win those mainstream awards.
Mhm.
My main goal is to use my artistry to empower the Black collective as a whole, to, heal us, get us to be thought provoking about our issues, and to inspire us to love us. And probably what one of the things, well, I've always been about Black issues, but some of the things that probably got me on that journey was things that's happened to me in my life as a Black man in this country, being targeted just for being a Black man, going through
Mhm.
police brutality and stuff like that. Also, being in a hospital at one point that, unbeknownst to me, had a reputation for killing off their Black patients. And they
Mhm.
had every intention on killing me. One of the white doctors came in my hospital one day and told me, well, Mr. Ransom, you're not doing good. You need to start making funeral arrangements. It was one of those teaching hospitals, where they have these med residents at, and
Mhm.
they basically were using the Black patients as their guinea pigs without the Black patient's knowledge, of course.
Mhm.
And I told my mom that I needed to get out of that hospital, that she had to take me out of there, or I wasn't going to make it. And I would not be here today if I had to left that particular hospital. Um, and so seeing what I've been through, dealing with police brutality and racism, and also seeing what our people deal with every day, it's been laid in my spirit and on my heart from the higher power to use my artistry to empower Black people and to show us in different lights, not in the same old stereotypical stuff. And the things I do is not about trying to impress other people outside of us. The things I do, well, if other people want to watch it, that's great. But the things I do are for us to start looking at our own people in a different way, to show
Yeah.
compassion and understanding to our own people. Because people often say, well, Black people always say we're the most compassionate people, which we are. But the problem is we're normally more compassionate to every other race than we are to our own people. We will forgive every other group of people for everything, but we will hold grudges against our own people for small shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on your show, but
Listen,
but,
I mean, listen. I cuss every now and then on my channel.
oh yeah, you do, bro. Right.
Listen, my audience knows. So I mean, speak, as freely as you feel that you can.
Yeah, so everything I do with my films is about trying to get us to think as a people and to get us to have a conversation with our own people and to uplift and to heal us, and to show us loving each other. I'm
Yeah.
very intentional in what I write and what I put out there. The particular film that you saw that we're going to get into,
Yeah.
if you noticed in that film, you see Black couples together, and the sisters that the brothers are with are not racially ambiguous looking.
Yeah.
You clearly see they are Black women, and they
Mm-hmm.
have good relationships with one another. Because I personally know a lot of Black couples that are in loving relationships and that have good marriages, but you would not know that by what you see purposely portrayed on television and in film for the most part. Because the only
Exactly.
time you really get to see, like loving Black couples, it may be something with like a laugh track behind it, like a sitcom, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you never really get to see like a serious um, film or TV show that shows strong Black couples together
Yeah.
with a
Mm-hmm.
Black family. Like what was that show that had the Black couple, but he was raised by Caucasians?
Is it an old
Well,
show?
it was a show that was on one of those streaming platforms. Was it All of Us or it was something? It was one of those shows that I heard people talking about where it did have a Black couple, a Black man and a Black woman together, but um, one of them was raised by a white family or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like they couldn't have been raised by a Black family. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I
Yeah.
forgot I don't remember the name of it, but I remember people talking about it. I think it was on Netflix, but I'm not sure. It could have been on Amazon. It was one of those platforms.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good, good little, backstory that you gave. And I remember when I was DMing you on Instagram, and after I had watched the film, which we're going to get into shortly, like what was the basis behind it, and you wanted to get my take on it, and I had
Mhm.
liked the direction in which you went with it and the breakdown that
Yeah.
you did, and I love the fact that you said that you wanted to show a strong, intact Black relationships, because we are lacking that, and not only
Mhm.
just in television and film, you see it pretty much everywhere, even in print ads or
Right.
commercials, maybe
Hmm.
in cartoons. It's pretty much everywhere and then if they are together, it's some kind of dysfunction. It's almost
Yeah.
like the only time Black people can be together is when they're being dysfunctional, like they cannot be functional. It's not like how shows were back in the day
Hmm.
where they had strong, intact, Black families. That's why I really give kudos to the late actress Esther Roll, who played Florida on Good Times,
Hmm.
because initially, for people that don't know, they were originally going to make her a single mother, like
I
a
know
single
that. Yeah.
mother to to three kids, and they weren't going to give her a husband. But she says, I'm not going to do this show if I don't have a husband. So
Right.
she literally fought with the execs about that, because she didn't want to be the stereotypical single mother, growing up in the ghetto,
Yeah.
because that was seen a few times, over, with like movies like Claudine and stuff like that. So she
Hmm.
didn't want that.
I'm.
She's like,
I made.
she was like, I'm already in a bad situation as it is being in the ghetto. Don't make it worse by me being a mother just raising kids by herself. So give me a husband. And that's
Right.
exactly what they did.
Yeah. I made a couple of posts about that in the past, giving Miss Esther Rowe kudos and props for that, because you don't have a lot of Black artists today that would stand up and refuse and possibly, lose a check, because
Yeah.
everybody nowadays is concerned about getting that bag, right? Everybody care about just getting the bag, and they don't care about standing up for certain principles. But
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
role, she was willing to turn down a lot of money, um, if they didn't give her a black husband and a father
Exactly.
in the show. And we need more people in the arts, black people in the arts like that have those
Exactly.
type of principles. You know.
And you got to think at that time too, like, back in the 70s, where it was hard for a lot of black actors to get leading roles on
Right.
mainstream television shows. Like, this was,
Hmm.
a show that aired on a network that you could see
Yeah.
weekly. So, it was, hard at that time, but I'm glad that she stood her ground with that, and that, that led to other shows down the line, to
Right.
having intact families, such as, the Jeffersons. You had
Yeah.
227, Family
Yeah.
Matters, Fresh Prince. I think the last time
Yeah.
I
The
saw a
Cosby
sitcom,
Show. Yeah.
the Cosby Show, of course, that one knocked out so many, tore down so
Yeah.
many different stereotypes. I mean, to have the mother and father married, they have kids, they lived in a brownstone, and
Hmm.
the father's a doctor, the mother is an attorney.
Right.
So that one they really went completely outside of the bubble that they had constantly had or consistently had put black
Yeah.
people in, to the point where it even had some black people back then questioning how real could this actually be, because that wasn't something that they saw,
That
or that
they've
wasn't
seen.
the light, or that wasn't the life that they had at that particular time, even in reality.
Yeah.
It didn't seem attainable. But, also the spin-off of A Different World, showing black kids going to college and going to an
Right.
HBCU. So that actually, I think, when A Different World came out, that actually helped the enrollment at colleges for black kids at the time, because
Oh,
they
it
said,
did. Yeah.
he's like, this looks fun. Let me go ahead and enroll. And I bet some of them probably thought Hillman was a real school. Like, Hillman College is not a real school. It would have been dope if it was, and it kind
Yeah.
of played itself out like it did on the show. But the fact of the
Right.
matter is, I think enrollment for black people definitely
Hmm.
skyrocketed thanks to that show. And I think that's what Bill Cosby was trying to convey. I think the last sitcom that I saw or watched consistently that had a intact black family, mother, father, and children, was My Wife and Kids. Or maybe
Okay.
Everybody Hates Chris, because they both
Yeah.
came out around that same time.
Yeah.
So
And
I think
again,
that's what.
right.
Go ahead.
And those are great shows. But again, remember I said, uh, even when they show like a black family intact, it always has to be a sitcom with a laugh
Mm,
track in the background.
exactly.
There's never a serious show or series where it's a strong black family portrayed.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, sort of like with Soul Food that spun off from the movie.
Yeah.
That was maybe one. Um, but of course, every family has issues. But
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
thing is that they like to harp on the most over the top, ratchet type issues,
Yeah.
and not all black families have that ratchet shit going on in their family. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But that's
Yeah.
what they like to focus on, is the over the top ratchet stuff. Like there was a film that somebody had posted about on my page that was on Netflix called I think it's called Really Love,
Hmm.
and it has a black man and a black woman on the cover. Um, and I went and checked it out, and it's actually was made by two sisters from Baltimore. And I watched the film. It's a really good film. Um, and it is not stereotypical, at all. And it shows these two falling in love. Of course, they had some issues. I'm not going to give away the film, but they have some issues that come about. But it's not nothing over the top. It's just the issues that they have came from like a lack of communicating properly with each other.
Yeah.
But it's not like anything over the top, like he's running around cheating on her and stuff like that. There's none of that going on in this film, and it was a beautiful film. You should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. Um,
Okay.
it's on Netflix. It's a black film made by two black women that's from Baltimore. It was written by a sister and directed by a sister.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely.
True. And speaking of that, you're talking about that. What who would you say is your inspiration if you have any? Like it could be, another actor, a director, a writer, because I know that you kind of span between those areas.
Well, people like Denzel Washington, of course.
Of course.
Um, John Singleton.
I feel like Denzel is like the default, like that everybody says is an
Well, yeah,
inspiration. But I mean,
John.
why wouldn't he be?
Right, right. I mean, I'm because I do both. I'm an actor and a writer and all
Yeah,
and director. So people are like, well, why don't you pick one? I'm like, why should I have to pick one? God gave me all these talents, so I should use all of them. And
yeah.
I'm passionate about all of them, So
Hmm.
Denzel was one, definitely. As far as like directors, people like John Singleton and how Spike Lee was back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, I like Ava DuVernay and some of the stuff that she does. I like what she did with the mini series about the Central Park Five, stuff
Oh,
like that.
ooh,
Yeah,
that was that miniseries was a one-time watch for me because of how impactful it was. Like I literally like when it was over and I finished watching the entire thing, I literally just sat there and looked at the screen after the credits rolled as if it was still playing. I don't think anything I've ever seen has done that before. And I lit that like that. I think that was probably one of the last times I probably shed tears at something like that because I knew it was a real story, but I didn't
right.
know they was going to go that deep into it. And it's like, wow, it makes you want to go back and research, whatever the media did not put out there about that. But yeah, that miniseries was something serious, and it was very widely talked about as it should have been.
Right. I definitely got angry from watching it. It also
Hmm.
made me cry as well, seeing what they went through and how they basically, abused them into confessing to something they didn't do.
Yeah.
And, I also got kind of angry at his father, the boy's father, who told him to go along with it, you
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah.
because
Hmm.
they threatened the father, they threatened his job, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, stuff like that. And I really personally, I don't focus on like showing white folks abusing black people and stuff like that because I
Yeah.
refuse to show a bunch of what I call, well, you probably heard the term before, trauma porn, right?
Yes. Yes.
I
Hmm.
don't like that. And there's a lot of racist white people that get off on watching that type of shit,
Hmm.
and I had the opportunity to possibly be in that HBO mini series that was on, that limited series that was called We Own This City.
Oh yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. and
Okay,
and that was in Baltimore, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was based on true stories and the crooked cops in this city. And
Yeah.
so, I was sent information. They wanted me to audition on Zoom, do a live audition on Zoom for a role in this. And the role was basically, the scene was these two brothers sitting on the porch, biological brothers sitting on the porch, talking, and the cops of their home, they're sitting where they live at, and the cops drive by and tell them to get off the porch, right? And an argument ensues. One of the cops begins to beat, stomp, and kick the one of the brothers to a bloody pulp, and he's
Hmm.
laying on the ground in a pool of blood, all bloodied up, and the cop is still kicking him. They wanted me to play that role, and I told them straight
Mm.
up, I can't do that. I can't do
Mm.
that. First of all, I've already been through police brutality. I'm not trying, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be immortalized on film, getting my ass kicked by some white man on film.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be out there forever like that. So I told him I couldn't do it,
Mm.
straight up.
Yeah, because that would be like reliving it all over again. That was too real for you to have,
Yeah,
have to experience. It's one thing, you had to go through that in real life, and then they wanted you to portray this, scripted,
yeah,
and it's like why if and now it's like it feels too real. So yeah, it's like you're opening up a wound that was already closed.
right, exactly. To see, like I have a um a new screenplay that I'm writing now, uh, which is basically about right now the name of it is 1135. That's the name I'm going with right now, 1135, and that is basically about how a lot of black people look at each other through through the prism of a white gaze,
Mm.
GAZE. We look at each other through the eyes of white people, and we judge each other through the eyes of white people, and how that affects us and our progress as a people, and the fact, that religion versus spirituality, and how that also keeps us down. The indoctrination of spirituality versus the natural connection to the higher power, which people call spirituality. Um, so I'm working on that right now, and it's going to be an all black cast. I don't really have to have white people in my shit to prove my point. You know what I'm saying? And some black folks get mad at me about that because they think I should include everybody. Now, my first film that I shot back in 2009, which was about a black family, it did have one white person in it, but she was only there to prove a point about something. In my mind, she didn't know that. But my goal for my first film was to eventually branch it off to becoming a series. But I didn't have the means to make it a series like I wanted to, but yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of how, like, in Hollywood, they will put out a movie, or they'll say that they'll have a movie, but then they have to find a way to insert a white character in there somewhere, somehow, some way. That's what happened with Don Cheadle when he did the movie called Miles Ahead with Miles Davis, and they said the movie looks great, it looks fine and everything, but we want to give him a white friend. Mind you, I'm like, this is a biopic, so you want to insert this imaginary white person in there, or not greenlight his movie. Yes, and I thought that was so messed up. So they ended up casting Ewan McGregor, who, for those of you who don't know, he plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars series, and there it was a character that did not exist in Miles Davis's life, or just at all, just because they just wanted to put a white character in there somewhere, and it's like, so I see exactly what you mean. That's why a lot of people like to go the independent movie route, because they pretty much have control of who they cast, what type of character is going to be, what type of film is going to be. You're literally doing it by yourself. The only con is you're doing it by yourself, so you have to have your own funding. So I mean, that's like the con, but at least you have creative control of what of the process that you're doing. That's why, even though this person has pretty much been mainstream for years, going back to their Mad TV days, is that I have to give kudos to Jordan Peele, because he does, with his movies Get Out, Us, and Nope, he has tapped into the horror market. But what I like about his movies is that they all have a message behind them. They're not your typical slasher type of horror movie, or demonic ghost or whatever. And then he goes out of his way to cast black actors as leads in his movies, because he knows that when it comes to the horror genre, you rarely have a lead black actor or actress in those movies, and then it's the same trope. They're gonna die, probably 5 minutes into the movie. That was always a trope back in the day. You're gonna die within the first 5 minutes of the movie.
If you're black in a horror movie, you're gonna be gone quick.
And it would be, it's like, you go into a horror movie thinking that they're gonna die and everything like that, and you'll be surprised if they live. So I'm glad that he actually did that, and he actually did do that. With Get Out, the main character, he survived, and I like that it was his friend that helped to save him. In Us, the family survived as well, and then in Nope, they survived as well and defeated the entity. So I like how that pretty much plays itself out. That's why Jordan Peele has gotten so much respect. Then you got to take it back that this is a guy that went from sketch comedy into horror. Like, people was like, Jordan Peele, like, that, what a leap that was. But he said he's always liked horror. He's always liked horror, even when he was doing comedy. And that just shows you right there that he has range, and he was able to be a good storyteller. So I can't wait to see what his next project is going to be.
Oh yeah, I enjoy his work as well. And there was a movie, I don't think it's his though. I saw an advertisement for it about like these people coming back, or these spirits coming back from, you've heard the stuff about certain black towns being buried underneath water.
Like Lake Lanier.
There's a movie that was supposed to be coming out about something like that, where the spirits of those people that's buried under the water coming back to I guess haunt white folks or whatever.
That'll be very interesting to see. that would be very interesting to see. It almost kind of reminds me of Tales from the Hood. know
Yeah,
that. Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I remember seeing an advertisement for it like a couple of months ago. I haven't seen it again lately, but if I see it again, I'm gonna send it to you. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it
yeah.
kind of reminds me of the movie Tales from the Hood when the dolls came to life.
Oh
That
yeah.
when I
Yeah.
think of when you broke down like that description, it kind of reminds me of that. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the show Atlanta. You know Donald Glover's show. You know they just had their
Yeah. I've
last
heard of it. Yeah.
they just had their last season in back in November. It was a 4-season run.
Hmm.
But one thing I liked about him is that this was his show, even though it was on the main network, it was on FX. But I liked that he had a black leading cast. It was him, Zazie Beetz, Brian Tyree Henry, and Lakeith Stanfield, who all, by the way, have been doing phenomenal in their acting
Yeah.
careers outside of that show. And one thing that I liked is that they didn't get pigeonholed into that
Hmm.
show. They all expanded career wise outside of that show.
Right.
Donald Glover, he has music and he has writing, he has acting, he has all of that going on. Zazie Beetz, she is in the Deadpool series, and she's
Hmm.
done a few other, she was in the Joker movie with Joaquin
Yeah.
Phoenix, and she's done some other films as well. Lakeith Stanfield, his resume pretty much speaks for itself. I mean, we would be
Right.
here all day running down the stuff that he's done. And now,
Oh yeah.
Brian Tyree Henry, he's in the Marvel movies, and he just got nominated for his first Oscar. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I'm glad that all of them were able to expand outside of that show, because a lot of times when shows end, that's the end for them. You like,
Right.
where did this person go? Like, how, like, we haven't heard from them in a long time. And I'm glad that Donald Glover was able to do that, because at the time Donald Glover was probably the only recognizable person from that show because of Childish Gambino.
Yeah.
um but the other three actors, they were still up and coming, but now everybody, you see their face, you know exactly who they are. And I feel like he was able to give them that
Hmm.
launch pad. And basically he said, I'm giving you the launch pad right here, but it's up to you to take off of that launch
Right.
pad and do with it what you feel. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm glad about that. And that's something you really don't hear about, is a lot of black creatives giving other people an opportunity to really launch their careers the way that they want it to be. And I'm glad
Yeah.
that people like him were able to do that.
Yeah. People have often asked me, why don't you reach out to Tyler Perry and all this and that? First of all, I don't even know how to reach him. And secondly,
Yeah,
I don't think he would help me personally
yeah,
because of the
especially
type of stuff I do.
with the
Huh?
stuff you do. Yeah,
Right. If I was doing stuff that was, appeasing to white fragility, then yeah, he would. But my stuff is
right.
unapologetic, so he
Yeah,
wouldn't help me. I doubt it if
yeah,
he would help me. So
exactly. I guess my next question for you is, what is your, like, as far as like type of movies or film, what is your favorite type of movie to make? Like, what type of movie do you like to make, or what type of film would you like to make?
well, if we weren't dealing with all that we had to deal with as black people, I would just, create, regular stories showing black people living their lives and thriving, you
Yeah.
know, uh, without all, the pressure and stuff like that, just enjoying each other as a people.
Hmm.
Um, but because, of course, we're dealing with all this shit we got to deal with, I got to, because a lot of other people are not doing it, so I have to do it, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, what the hell is that? Yeah, so sorry about that. There was a little alarm going off. But that's what I would do. I would be making some type of story, probably dealing with black family and just showing black people together and enjoying each other
Hmm.
and thriving in
Yeah.
life and stuff like that.
Almost like a
Um,
utopia.
yeah. So my first film, which was shot in 2009, called Speak It Real, which was about a family that I created by the name of Speaks. You had the parents. They also, both had successful careers. They had 7 children, 5 of which were grown. All 5 of the grown children had different professions, with professional people as well. And you had both sets of grandparents that were in their family too. They were a black family who also had roots in Barbados,
Hmm.
on the mother side of the family. And I I tried to redo that film over again, like several years later. So there's like two versions of that, which I got to get that second version out there. And then I did the Eternal Extra, the one that's on the streaming service right now, the Black-owned streaming service. And I have
Nice.
another film that I'm working on getting edited called We Brothers, um, which is also about Black brotherhood, Black
Mm.
men who come from different backgrounds who have a close brotherhood. And some of them are born in different parts of the world. Three of them are from the States. One is born in Africa, one is born in the Caribbean, and another one is born in the UK. Um, so I'm trying to get that edited right now. And like I said, I'm currently also writing a feature film dealing with how we as Black people look at each other and through the eyes of white folks.
Yeah,
Uh,
that sounds like that's going to be really good. Like that, I think
Thank you.
something like that definitely needs to be a story that needs to be told, because that's like holding up a mirror to a lot of Black people, because I think that's something that a lot of Black people either consciously or subconsciously do. Like some people know
Right.
that they're doing it, but I think just as many don't realize that they're doing it. And then when you tell someone that they are doing it, they become a little standoffish to the
Yeah.
person, because it's like, are you trying to call me a Sambo, or are you trying to call me a
Hmm.
coon or something? So it's basically, of like that. So I think that sounds like that's going to be very good.
Thank you. And then there's another one that's going to be a short film that came to my mind during the whole Martin Luther King Jr. birthday weekend.
Hmm.
Because basically, Martin Luther King, they make his whole legacy about one speech, right?
Yep.
And not even the whole speech.
And not
It's just a
exactly.
it's just a couple of lines from that particular speech, like the line about I have a dream that one day, little Black boys and little Black girls would join hands with little white boys and little white girls. And then
Mhm.
there's another line in there about, judge
Don't
not.
judge about the skin color, but the
Yeah,
content of the
that.
character. Yeah.
They make that entire speech. It was an 18-minute speech, but you wouldn't know it because they only focused on two little stanzas from that entire speech to make
Exactly.
us think that that was his whole intention in life, was to have us join hands with white folks. No one wants to talk about the Martin Luther King Jr. who said to Harry Belafonte, you know, I fear I've integrated my people into a burning home. They don't want to
Mm.
talk about that Martin Luther King. They don't want to talk about the one, who was fighting for reparations at the time that he was murdered.
Yeah.
He was
Hmm.
fighting for reparations.
Coming to
I
get that
shared,
check.
yeah, he said, we're going to get our check. I shared it on my wall. Most of the people on my wall ignore that. They don't pay no
Yeah.
attention to it.
Yeah.
Right. So this an idea came to my mind that it's going to involve Martin Luther King, Coretta, Betty, and Malcolm, who I have portrayed Malcolm X several times in this play called The Meeting. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Meeting.
I think
Um,
I had saw some pictures that you have posted up
yeah,
on your page.
it's a powerful play about a conversation between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Um, and I've been in that production several times. Actually, we just did it this past Wednesday too. So it'll involve Malcolm and Betty, Martin and Coretta, Medgar Evers and Merle Evers, and also it's going to involve Sean Bell. If you remember who Sean
Oh
Bell is.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm not going to give away all the details
Hmm.
about that
Yeah.
just yet,
Yeah.
but uh, this film will involve Sean Bell talking to them. Um,
That's gonna be interesting.
right after he's shot up in that car
Yeah.
from
Hmm.
leaving his
Bachelor
bachelor
party.
party of his wedding day, right? But yeah, but that will also entail talking about the Martin who uh white folks don't approve us to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah, because for
So
them, like you said, for them, the Martin that they want us to highlight or stay focused on is the "I have a dream" Martin in those couple of lines in the speech.
right,
That's it. That's the only part. And I said that's basically the bastardized version of him. I'm like, there is so much more to that man than just those couple of lines from "I have a dream." But we
yeah,
know we know why they invoked that.
he started. Actually, a lot of people was like he started to sound a lot like Malcolm the last couple of
Exactly.
years of his life. Now, people always want to bring up Mecca when it comes to Malcolm, right? Like
Hmm.
like they want to make it seem like he just totally changed when he went to Mecca. Yeah, he saw some white folks over there that seemed to be cool and stuff like that, and he came back here and said that he's willing to work with white folks, but he still was like, they can't join. They can't join our organizations, but
Yeah.
they can help, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said they can help, like if they want to help financially or whatever stuff like that, but they can't join our
Help from
organization.
help from a distance. Don't think that you're going to just come right on in and like sitting in our meetings or anything like that.
Right. But some black folks want to talk about Mecca as though he came over here ready to sing Kumbaya with white folks, and that's not the case.
Yeah, lost the translation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that how that happens. It kind of reminds me of a game that because I used to work at a when I was like one of my first jobs ever when I was like 17, I believe it was. I used to work at a day camp, with kids. Like it was a summer day camp. It was not one of those overnight ones, and it's from 9 to 3, and they used to play that telephone game. It starts off with one person. By the time it gets down to the 10th person, the message has completely changed. And that's kind of like how it is with Malcolm and Martin. Their message was put out there one way back then. Right. Years and generations later, it's completely mixed up and changed, just like how this just it grinds my gears with this word, how the word woke has been bastardized.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we know what that word means to us and where it came from and what it actually means definition wise. But ask someone of today what that word is, they'll give you this off the wall nonsensical definition of that word. I just hate the direction that word has taken to the point where whenever I hear certain people mention it, I already tuned you out. The minute you say something like that, and in the way that you try to mean it, I completely tune out anything else you have to say after that.
Well, see, the black folks that allow white folks to do that are the ones that don't know their history or don't have any attachment to their history like that. It's the same type of black person who compares. I've actually heard some black people compare the Black Panthers to the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah,
and that's really sad, right there.
That's it's no comparison whatsoever.
Right, because
it is no comparison.
The Black Panthers was never about going out here and killing white people.
Exactly.
They wasn't about harming anybody. They was just trying to protect, the black community and look out for black children and stuff like that. So those are two totally different groups.
Yeah,
nothing in common at all.
Yeah, I remember it was. Yeah, I remember there was. Go ahead.
And because I am outspoken about having a black first mentality, I get accused by some black people of hating white people.
Yeah.
First of all, what I try to explain is it takes energy to hate. And I honestly do not waste any of my energy on them hating them. My whole thing is about my energy, all of my energy goes towards loving us as a people and wanting to see us, empowered in our own skin and stuff like that. I don't have energy to sit around hating them. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
My energy is on us.
It's a waste of time, truthfully and honestly. And then eventually when you can't find something to hate on, then you start to nitpick, over little small things. Like for instance, I don't know, like recently, they had Cheryl Lee Ralph do Lift Every Voice and Sing at the pre-show for the Super Bowl on Sunday. And now they are so upset again, because this is not the first time that they got upset about someone singing that particular song. It's only one anthem. We shouldn't be divided, as a people. I said, too late. Too late.
Yeah, well, look, I'm tired of black folks singing that national anthem from this country, because that was written by a straight up racist. The song had a racist stanza in it, a straight up racist verse in it.
Yeah, that they took out.
They took it out, but it still don't change the fact who wrote it.
Exactly.
And I don't feel like any black person should be singing that song. Yeah, and I used to love that song, like when Whitney Houston sung it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they couldn't pay me to sing that shit. I mean, for real.
Yeah, like I said, and like I said, you have, like, when you have that much hate to the point where you got to end up nitpicking down to the bone down to the bone marrow, actually, when it comes to something like that. I said, now you're just sounding absolutely ridiculous. And the same thing goes for, I don't know if you're familiar with this sports commentator by the name of Chris Berman. He's been around for years.
I've
He
heard
had,
the name,
yeah, he, because they quote unquote said they made history because they had two black quarterbacks, with Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. He had mentioned about them to making history and everything like that, and then threw in there something about today being Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I said, I said, if black people really know what he was saying, for those who don't get what he was saying, is going back to that lie that Lincoln freed the slaves. That's basically what he was saying. He's basically saying they should be thanking Abe Lincoln for the reason why they're actually able to play football today, because he freed y'all from slavery. I'm like, oh my God, here they go pushing this lie again. And it was so many articles written up about it. They was like, huh? They was like, that was so random. And I don't know if you saw the clip when he said it, but it's like, exactly, it had no place there. It's like you just inserted it in there, and I'm sure that wasn't even on the teleprompter. You just threw that in there. Like that, it was the weirdest thing. But
you just showing who he is. And I wanted to say one more thing before we get into the film. But like, even with Malcolm X, again, people called him violent, right? White folks called him violent, and some black people today will refer to him as being violent. The thing is that the fact is that Malcolm X was never violent. He was never out here attacking anybody. No. He talked about self-defense.
Exactly.
Not just going out here beating up a random person. He talked about the fact that we have the right to defend ourselves when we're being attacked. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's basically them trying to say that, black people, the minute that we bring up self-defense, that means we're going to go out and attack them. And that goes back to the paranoia that a lot of white people have put onto themselves, because that guilt is kicking in. So, a lot of them like to say that I'm not responsible for anything that my ancestors did. But when you look at how some of them move, I'm like, I always say, you're not far removed from their ancestry. So, and it's a lot of stuff that can prove and back that up. I mean, especially every time Black History Month comes around, how many times you hear them talking about blackface, someone doing it, or doing these mock slave auctions. I'm like, y'all love to say that was so long ago, but you do everything you can to reenact what happened so long ago. So,
it wasn't that damn long ago.
That's the hypocrisy of it all.
Yeah, and just last week, there was this story that came out about this white woman. I forgot her name, Susan something. And she's 34. And there was a white guy who's a neo-Nazi who's 27, I think, who they had plans to come to Baltimore.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
And shut down the power grid because they wanted to go on a killing spree of killing black people.
Exactly.
Those were their plans.
Yeah, exactly. And they figured that they didn't have any power, then they wouldn't see it coming. And then I believe they said that she was from Catonsville. So she knew the landscape, because I believe he was from Orlando. So she knew the landscape and how to maneuver it as well. And luckily that did not happen, because you're up in Baltimore, so that definitely would have affected you. And me being, I'm like, I'm more closer to DC, about 45 minutes away, but a lot of those power grids are connected, so that could have affected me. Especially because we're still relatively close. Like from here to Baltimore is like a 45-minute drive. So so it could have affected a good chunk of the state if they were successful. And the crazy part about it is when they brought that story up, they had brought up another story from December where some people actually were successful, I believe, in North Carolina, of doing that, of
shutting down the power.
Shutting down the power. Yeah, it happened right around Christmas. I don't know if it was before Christmas or after, but I think it was in that range when they actually did that. I don't think their motives were the same as theirs, but they were able to actually do that. So I'm glad that they were actually able to catch them before they did what they did, because in my opinion, that's an attempted domestic terroristic act.
Oh yeah, it is.
For sure. But yeah, let's go ahead now and segue into the film, The Eternal Extra. Yeah. So tell the people, what is The Eternal Extra? What is that film about? What is the synopsis, without giving too much away?
Okay, you want me to talk about how it came about first, or?
Yeah, you can explain as much as you possibly want, as much as you possibly can.
Well, again, because I am outspoken about being black first and empowering our people, I often get met with not backlash, but pushback or um, being, you know, pushed to the side
Mm-hmm.
by other black people
Yeah.
for being outspoken. Because a lot of other black people, not all, but a lot of other black people in the arts are only concerned about getting that bag, right? So I've had other people tell me, and some of them have agreed with me. They're like, I agree with you, but white people have all the money and white people have all the power, so you should just tone all that down.
Yeah.
Stop speaking out because you don't want to make it to a certain level, and then they find out something you said, and then they come back and take it away from you, right? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't want to give them that type of power over me to be able
Exactly.
to take anything from me anyway. And I was, going to perform in this play in California that I was asked to perform in. And I had posted it on Facebook that I was asked to perform in California. So
Mm-hmm.
people came through and they was like, congratulations, bro, go get him out there in California, right? And there's this person that I know who's also an actor. He
Yeah.
rarely says anything to me on my page, and we're supposed to be friends and all that. But I know he watches my page, but he rarely says anything. So I went out one night and I ran into him like it was like a couple of days before I was supposed to go to California. He said, so I see you about to go to California. I'm not trying to tell you to dumb yourself down, but you might want to tone all that pro-black stuff down when you go out there
Mm.
because it's a different beast out there, and I don't want you to block your blessings and stuff like that, right? So as he's saying this to me, I'm thinking to myself, one of my other films was just in the Baltimore International Black Film Festival, right? A month
Mm-hmm.
prior to this conversation. And then I'm thinking about him because he's a member of SAG, right? The Screen Actors
He's
Guild,
not
right?
this guild. Yep.
Yeah. And he's been with SAG since like 2003.
Oh, so he's been in there for a couple, like almost about 2 decades.
It's 20 years now. It's 2023 now. So at that time, it was like 13, 14 years. When we had this conversation, it was like 2017 then, right? So when he's saying this to me, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you're with SAG and you get a lot of work with SAG, but it's always in the background, right?
Mm.
Now, I've had this idea for the Eternal Extra before I even had this conversation with him. But once I had this conversation with him, it kind of pushed this idea to the forefront of my mind,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm like, I'm doing my own stuff. I'm creating my own projects and putting other black actors and actresses in my stuff, giving
Yeah.
them opportunities to be seen. And you're still waiting on an opportunity from, you know, mainstream to give you an opportunity to be
Exactly.
seen. Um,
Mm.
so, the film, The Eternal Extra, uh, I'll say about, a little bit what it's about first, and then I'll say one of my main messages for the film, or what I hope people get out of it, is that um, it's about these two best friends who grew up together and they had dreams of becoming big actors. And there's a flashback scene in the film of these two little boys playing with this truck on the floor, playing with this toy truck, and the Oscars come on the television. And one of them is like, that's going to be us up there one day, right? So fast forward to present day, they're now in their late 30s and they feel like they haven't gotten to where they should be in their
Yeah.
career. One of the guys, Lante, he feels like, man, bump that shit. I'm tired of this. Tired of playing these games. We need to start creating our own project.
Mm-hmm.
The other character, which is the one that I play, because at first I was going to play Lante, but I'm like, if I play Lante, they're going to be like, oh, he's just playing himself, right?
Yeah.
Because Lante talks a lot like I do,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
I chose to play the other character to show them that I could do that as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So I played the other guy who was nothing
And to
like
also
me.
see, and to also kind of see yourself, like
Yeah,
see, because only you can see, experience yourself because you're in that body 24/7. So I
right,
guess you wanted to say, let me write this character and have someone else playing, but they're basically being me, named but
right,
under another name. So now I
right,
can look and see from a different perspective how
right.
I am.
Yeah, yeah, and so I chose to play the other guy also because you know other actors and stuff would be like, oh, he's just playing himself, right? So I played the other guy, Dro, who has allowed himself to be beaten down and distraught and doubting himself by the words of other black people. Other black people have told him, you're not going to make it, until white people recognize you, basically, right?
Yeah.
That any success you have is not worth anything unless white people recognize it, right?
Exactly.
And so there's this whole white wall thing involved in the film. If you caught onto the white wall thing, and when he comes out of this audition and he's like at the elevator and he's yelling at this white wall about, when are you going to see me? When are you going to recognize me and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So the message of this film, one of the main messages is for us as black people to realize the power that we have if we come together and to stop giving our power away to the status quo.
Exactly.
That's the main message of the film. And then I also want people to recognize, that, the relationships in the film between the husbands and the wives and also between the brothers. My character has two brothers, right? And he has a sister. And him and his two brothers are close, right?
Yeah.
If you remember that scene in the film. And then you see his sister at the party scene.
Yeah. Yeah. I really did enjoy the party scene for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, I like that song too. That's an original song.
Yeah.
That was created for the film. We don't need your permission. And a lot of people who have watched the film have came back and said they really like that song.
Yeah, and I like how y'all and I like how y'all did without giving too much away for people that would want to watch it. The part where y'all are just kind of coming up with the song in its raw, rough cut version,
Right.
and then when y'all perform it and how it sounds. So I like how it wasn't like, oh, we have this new song and here it is. I actually like that you put in the film of what I guess you could say the rough draft version of the song sounds like, even with all parties involved. And then when you do have the actual finished song and it's polished, how it sounded, like it was like I was literally watching the movie not expecting it to sound like that when it got to that scene because I had already heard the rough cut of it, and then when I heard the actual finished version, I'm literally like just kind of like bopping my head to and like kind of like got into the mood when I was listening to it. And I said that actually would be dope to have as a downloadable song or a song that you could stream.
Yeah, I've tried to talk to them about it because it was a brother by the name of Cosmic. I think you pronounce it's his stage name, Cosmic Chesh, something like that, right?
Yeah.
CZEHSC, something like that. He's the one who did the music, but the two guys that played my brothers in the film, they both rap, right?
Okay.
So
cool.
They wrote their own verses, right? They wrote their own verses, and the really tall, light-skinned one, he also wrote that hook. And what we did was we got together and we recorded it, before we shot it. So when you see it in the film, we're lip syncing to our own voices.
Yeah.
Right. So
I kind of figured that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying to talk to them about, because I several people have really said that they like that song, So
yeah. And also, without giving away too much of the movie, is definitely how you chose to conclude the film.
Okay, yeah.
Now I gotta ask this question. Did you go did you know you was going to end it like that, or did you go through several different drafts of how you was going how you was going to choose to end that film?
That version that ended up on film was like the fourth version.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I kept some of the scenes in the beginning part the same, but as far as how I was going to end it, and there was actually two characters that was like in the second and third versions that were like older characters, that I took out, right?
Okay.
But at first, I was, going to have I'm not going to give it away, have a clear ending, right? But then it was dropped in my spirit, don't give a clear ending.
Yeah.
To end it like it is. And the reason why I ended it how I did is because I wanted to start a conversation. I want Black people to watch this and have a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
That's how come, you hear the little one-liners in the party scene where
Mm-hmm.
people stand up and say this and that.
Yeah.
That wasn't originally in the film either, right? But what happens is that um, a lady here from Baltimore who's a very talented writer, director, actress named Miss Rosalind Gaines, she was my production manager on the film. And I was saying I needed some extras for this party scene, right? And these are some of the people were actors who I've known for a while and some I just met over the past couple of years
Mm-hmm.
before the film.
Yeah.
And so she said, reach out and put out a post and everything. And she said she would reach out too. So these people was like they would be extras in my film. And I don't have it like that, so I couldn't pay them, right?
Yeah.
The
Mm-hmm.
only person who got paid on my film was the camera person. And the only way that happened is through donations, right? My
Mm-hmm.
films have been done because of donations from people,
Exactly.
from black folks. And so I felt like they coming to be in my film, and this film is called The Eternal Extra, and they're going to be extras in my film.
Mm.
I wanted to give them something to say, right?
Exactly. And that's dope.
So,
And that's dope because when it comes to extras a lot, they don't really they're just there. Like, and
yeah.
I've done like extra work or background work before.
Hmm.
And then, basically by you giving them a line to say, they pretty much got bumped up to featured extra. So,
Yeah.
like it's just they were just there in that one scene, they had that one line, and then that was it. So,
Hmm.
I think that's dope that you actually gave them something to say. He's like, I can't pay you, but so let me go ahead and make this other incentive and have you
Right.
actually say something, even if it's just one word.
Yeah, because I'm like, even with one line, right? It all depends on how you say that one line. You can be very
Exactly.
memorable, you know. Like the one brother that said that line about, what's that line about where he say, go get that bag, bro, or whatever the line is, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, it's the way he said it. A lot of people remembered how he said it.
Exactly.
And then the other brother who stood up, the dark skinned brother who stood up, and money isn't everything, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it does matter what you do. So uh, I always try to think about my cast and stuff too. So that's why I wrote those one-liners in there. And the reason again why I ended it the way I did is because I wanted to start a conversation between black folks because we need to have a conversation amongst us
Mm-hmm.
without interference. Which
Exactly.
also brings me back to my film that I told you about that I'm writing, um, with you know, how black people see each other through the eyes of white folks.
Mm-hmm.
Because we say we want to have an all black conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, because even if there are no Caucasians in the room physically,
Yep.
there's some Caucasians living in the brains of black people.
Exactly. So technically they are in the room. They're just not
Right,
physically there. Yep.
right, right. And that's
Mm-hmm.
another point. That's another point that's going to be brought out in this film that I'm writing, this
Yeah,
screenplay that I'm writing now.
that's why I said I can't wait to see that one, because like the way that you're presenting it, it sounds like something that's definitely going to be worth watching and something that needs to be seen by not just people in your network, but
Mhm.
people even outside of it. And that's the
Yeah.
the one thing about people don't understand on the independent movie market is that the market is so small, but the
Mhm.
network is so close, is even closer. That's why it was easy for you to get those extras, because the market is there. And then you said you have worked with some of those people before.
Mhm.
So, if the reputation was good there, they have no problem, coming out and doing something for you. And, and vice versa, in return, you
Right.
going to do something for them, especially, in the state that we live in, the state of Maryland. The acting market is so small. It
Yeah.
is very, very tiny. It's definitely not in LA. It's not
Mhm.
in New York. It's
Right.
not Atlanta, which has pretty much become the LA of the East Coast at this point. And that's mainly
Well,
due to Tyler
y-
Perry, mainly. We really,
yeah.
really put it down, boil it down to it. Because really, there's not a lot of big shows or movies that get filmed in this area. They do happen, but they're few and far in between.
And
Like, of course, go ahead.
normally when they are shows that are set here and shot here, they normally have a crime theme.
Like The Wire.
The Wire, The Corner, uh, Homicide, Life on the Street.
Yep.
Shows like that, it always has something to do with crime. You know,
or even and you can even go into like political, like you can say House of Cards.
yeah.
You know, like if for those who watch the show, like if you know, you know. And I've actually done a few episodes
Hmm.
for that series before it got canceled. And
Yeah.
this is actually before the whole Kevin Spacey stuff too came
Okay. Yeah. Kevin Spacey, that's a mess. Man.
out.
But uh yeah, so I just want us to care enough to protect ourselves, right? Because
Hmm.
like what happened last week with those crazy people trying to shut down the power grid and all that, or had plans to do that.
Hmm.
Stuff like that happens. What do we have in place to protect ourselves? You know,
Hmm.
um, the white folks who are racist, they train their children. They train
Hmm.
their children to shoot guns, uh, teach them how to fight and defend themselves, to teach them how to fight or kill black people. They do that.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying we need to teach our children how to kill anybody, but we need to teach ourselves and our children how to defend ourselves.
But
Being,
definitely.
you know,
Especially because I always say that there's always something called, soft targets. And usually the soft targets for me are um black women, the
mhm,
elderly, no matter what the gender, and children, no matter what the gender.
right,
Especially if you are by yourself, it's
right,
the possibilities are endless. So I always say make sure that you
hmm,
are, even if the travel impacts, like you have to travel in a group, because they're
yeah,
not going to all come at you in a group. But when
no,
you're
no.
by yourself, that's when many of them are going
Well,
to try and
yeah,
strike.
they don't fight fair. They like to gang
Oh,
up. Oh,
definitely not. Most
right.
definitely not. Because there was a video that went viral in the UK where it was this black female. I don't know how old she was. She got into a fight
Hmm.
with this white female, and all of a sudden, this older white woman and her 2 or 3 teenage daughters came in and literally jumped this black girl because she was getting the best of the white
Right.
woman, like literally. And I think they I think they all got arrested, and I think there was some hate crime charges that they were looking into, because that
Yeah.
definitely could have been seen as a hate crime. And this is over in the UK. So
Hmm.
when a lot of people think that white supremacy is just in the US,
Oh
I
yeah,
said
I
no,
know.
it's very global. It's
Right.
everywhere. It's just that you may not hear about it in a lot of other places because
Hmm.
it's very intricate in the
Right.
fabric of America because of the
Right.
way that it's put out there like that. But it's definitely a global thing for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. So we just want to be focused on singing "Kumbaya," but we have to be smart enough to protect ourselves. It reminds me of what Muhammad Ali said. That clip of Muhammad Ali talking about quote unquote good white people, when they ask him
Hmm.
about good white people, and he's like, "Well, how does he put it?" He said, "You want me to just look at these, few white people standing over here that want to do right, right?
Yeah,
And not see this other million white people that's trying to kill me."
exactly.
And that's the problem, because a lot of black people, a lot of our people, they get caught up every time a white person does something that they think is nice or not racist towards black people. We want to get fooled into thinking that there's hope for all of them, that they
Hmm.
all going to change. And the
Hmm.
fact of the matter is, they're not all going to change.
Exactly.
Racism is always going to be here.
Yeah.
The only thing we can do is try to take their power away from us, take their power away. And the only way we can take their power away is if we decide to love us first. If we
Exactly.
put us first as a people and come together
Hmm.
and put us first, they won't have no more power over us. They
Hmm.
have power over us because we keep trying to gain acceptance from them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I've told people a lot of times that black people, we cannot afford to live in la la land. We have
Hmm.
to live in reality. And I think a lot of black people don't truly grasp that
Right.
concept because
Hmm.
they don't want to get uncomfortable. And
Right.
just like you was telling me about your friend and saying that you go out there to California, to LA, you got to tone down the pro blackness and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's because like that's probably something that they would do if they
Right.
was in the same footing as you. Like that just lets you know a lot of people would drop all morals
Hmm.
just to get something. And then when you think about what your friend said, I keep thinking to myself, that's how a lot of black celebrities are. I bet you a lot of them were one way before they became famous, and then after they took off, they turned into a shell of themselves. And that's why I keep saying to myself, I bet you like a lot of the people that we see, a lot of Black entertainers, no matter what spectrum they are in entertainment, that's not the real them. I bet you when the cameras go off, the director yells cut or whatever it is they're doing, they go home. They are completely different from what they are. It makes me wish that I could be a fly on the wall to see what kind of conversations they have when it comes to issues affecting Black people. Like, for instance, what kind of conversations were they having when it came to the topic of Tyree Nichols that they don't tell the press? Like, what are they talking to? Like, when they go home and they're done for the day and they're talking to their family or whoever, what kind of conversations are they having? I was always curious about that, because I want to believe that they do have the kind of conversations that we're having right now, but because of the position that they're in, they can't say it out loud because they don't want to lose any type of platform that they have. But then, of course, you have some people that don't care and they will tell it, like it is. And some don't have to really say much at all, because the person, whoever they got an issue with, is going to pretty much tell on themselves. And it's just like, they just did what it did. I mean, look at what they did with Kyrie Irving. That all he did was post a link, and then this hailstorm just kind of came barreling down on him. And the thing is, he barely didn't even have to say anything. It's like the talent spoke for itself. And now, with him, being out of Brooklyn and getting traded to Dallas, and then Kevin Durant trading it as well, now it really exposes itself, with that owner of the team. So, it's just crazy how that is. I keep telling you, I said that's why I'm so glad that when I'm on here, I can pretty much say, I wouldn't say any and everything that I want, because I can still be careful about what I say, but I'm not bound by a contract to the point where I have to feel like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't go that route. I might be stepping on too many toes. But the people out there, they are bounded by contract, and that's why I said I'm glad that people like yourself have taken the independent route, especially since you said earlier in our discussion that you said that you wanted to go up there, get on the stage, accept an Oscar and all types of stuff like that. But that that was then. But then growth happened, stuff, you've seen things, and you're like, what, I don't need all of that. Because then it's like a lot of that stuff is just performative. Let me go ahead and do what it is that I love to do. I have full control of what it is that I am creating. I am putting out my message, what people need to see, and what people need to hear.
Yeah, that's more important to me than winning an Oscar or whatever. I have to. They say, like, what are you leaving behind, right? And I care about what I leave behind for our people. I don't want to just leave any old type of thing out here. And my film, The Eternal Extra, it was in 5 film festivals, right?
Okay. I was going to ask you that question. Was your film like in any film festivals? But
it was in the Baltimore International Black Film Festival. It was in the Roxbury International Film Festival in Boston. It was also in a festival ran by a sister called the Strong Chance Film Festival out of Brooklyn, New York. And it was in a festival. Actually, it was in a short film festival, which I did not reach out to them, but they reached out to me. It was in a short film festival in Munich, Germany.
Oh, that's international.
Yeah, they reached out to me though. I had to reach out to them, but they reached out to me. And the last festival it was the Detroit Black Film Festival, right? But I did enter it into several other festivals. Now, each festival was like, my film scored high, in the judging process. And to be straight up with you, I feel like some of the festivals, the Black festivals that I tried to enter that did not accept my film, I think in a couple of those cases, it had to do with the fact that they have some white people on their boards. Or they have...
and the message you was conveying was a little too much for them.
Yeah, they have white people on their boards, and they have white people that may donate money to their festivals. So my message, my film, does not coddle white fragility.
Exactly. So they probably felt a type of way about that.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's a shame too.
Yeah, And I said that's interesting. You said it went to Germany. You got to think about it. In Germany, where there's like probably less than 1% of black people there, and it got accepted over there. That's crazy. That's why it kind of caught me off guard
Well,
when you said that.
what I told you was they reached out to me,
Yeah,
right?
that's even interesting. You know, you didn't reach out to them; they reached out to you. So they saw something there that they wanted to show over there. So I think that's pretty dope. And by the way, for those listening, the film is like less than 30 minutes long. It's literally the definition of a short film.
It's
So like
20.
so you can literally
Yeah,
watch it in like one sitting.
it's 27 minutes and 4 seconds long. That's the whole thing, running time. The opening credits to the closing credits is 27 minutes and 4 seconds. And that's also interesting because a couple of those festivals that I did not get into, like one of the festivals said their definition of a short film is anything 30 minutes and under, right? My film doesn't go over 30 minutes. Then they said my film scored high, but they didn't accept it. They also said they was trying to get more films in, right? Because a lot of the films that's like 10 minutes long, you got like 5 minute long films, 10 minute long films, and stuff like that. And they was like they wanted to get more of those in. So it wasn't anything against my film. But then there was one festival that was sending me like mixed messages. They was talking about how good my film was and how well it was put together. But then they said some crazy stuff that didn't make sense. And that right there let me know the reason why that particular festival did not accept my film is because they felt like it was going to upset some white people. So
yeah, and like, and then of course, when it comes to film festivals, I think a lot of people who do like short films or independent films,
right.
for many, their dream is to go to Sundance or
Yeah.
the I think it's called the TIFF, which I believe it's in the Toronto International Film
Okay,
Festival.
yeah.
Like those two right there are like the mecca of film festivals. So my question to you is, if you was to manage to make it and the reason why I say Sundance in
Yeah, I
particular
know that's the
is
big one, yeah.
because that's Utah. The reason why I say that is because they say if your film can get into Sundance, there's a good chance that it could be seen by the quote unquote right people, because that's where the Sundance is like the Hollywood of the independent circuit.
Right.
So a lot of people who broke out into the industry who came from independent films went through Sundance. So my question to you is, if Sundance called you or you submitted to them, a lot of times it might be the other way around, and your film got picked, like what would your reaction to that be?
First of all, I'd be shocked as hell. Because like I said, my films do not coddle doesn't coddle white fragility. So I'll
I'll put it
be
like this
very
before you go.
surprised.
I'll put it like this before you go forward. Keep this in mind. Nate Parker's Birth of a Nation went to Sundance and got high praise. And we all like, did you see his Birth of a Nation?
I saw it, but see, one of the reasons why that probably got in there was because of how it ends. He's killed at the end, right?
Yeah. But the reason why I say that is because he made a movie about Nat Turner,
right,
and he made it on his own dime.
Yeah,
it wasn't
right.
backed by a major studio.
True.
And we know a major studio was not going to greenlight something like that.
Right.
Shoot, you imagine if someone made a movie about John Brown. They don't they don't talk about John as far as he's concerned. He's a traitor. But
right.
But that movie, it went to Sundance. It got high praise. It got a lot of Oscar buzz. Like this movie was slated to win a lot of awards, but then, well, what happened, unfortunately, happened. But I'm like, if his film like that can get, and that's a feature film because that's far from a short film. If a movie like that could get in there, and we already know like how that movie is set up and how it's structured, then what you did is completely tame compared to that.
Because see, it's the way they shot it, right? If you notice when they shot that film, they didn't really hold the camera on the white folks being killed too long, right? Like versus like, did you watch The Woman King? I'm not going to get into it.
I didn't watch it.
I was not going to watch it, but one of my friends was like, I got a ticket for you. So he paid for it because I wasn't going to spend my money to go see that. So I did notice certain things in the film, about how they shot the scenes where the black people are fighting each other.
Yeah.
When black people are fighting in this film, they were very sure to show the brutality, right?
I see. Now I see where you hit it.
But when they showed, because they didn't really show any white people being killed till like towards the end of the movie. For the most part, when they showed the white people being killed, the camera would be pulled away for the most part, as they were being. They wouldn't like show it like right in your face that much.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and that's what was done with Birth of a Nation. But yeah, that was a film that I would not expect to be accepted in Sundance, but it was. And then that old racist dude bought the rights to it, right?
I think
I know Rupert Murdoch or
I
something.
think it was Fox Searchlight. They bought the rights to the movie because at the time it didn't have a backing by a studio. It was just a movie that was independently made. And the thing is, the way it was shot, you wouldn't think it was independently made because it looked like it was made on a good sizable budget, but you would never know. But yeah, Fox Searchlight, they bought the rights to it so they could put it into the theaters.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because I remember when they dropped that first trailer for it, like in April of that year, and I had chills. I was like, come on, October, like, let's get it. I said, we have been waiting for this movie ever since Nate Parker announced that he was going to make a movie about Nat Turner. And I was like, oh, he's real bold with it.
Well, one of my favorite parts of that movie, or the favorite part of that movie, is when he's going back and forth with that enslaver. And that enslaver quotes a scripture, right? About how obey your masters or whatever. And then Nat Turner comes back with a scripture. I forgot how it goes. It's a scripture that he says where it's like basically kill those who would harm you or something. But those are not the exact words. But he found a scripture in the Bible, Nat Turner did, that basically says you should fight back, stuff like that when you're being harmed. So
yeah,
you
because he was
like,
I think I know what you're talking about, because he actually had put something in perspective for me, especially when it came to the Bible, because he was the only one that was allowed to read, and they only allowed him to read certain parts of the Bible. But then when he started to examine the parts that they didn't want him to read, he understood and came to the conclusion as to why they didn't want him to read it. And it was basically talking about the complete opposite of whatever they had him read. They basically had him reading the parts about being docile. But the parts that they didn't want him to read was about him being rebellious. So when he went back and he looked at it, he was like, wow, this is what they've been keeping from me for so long. So I feel like I've been doing brainwashing to my own people this whole time. So then when he went back and really examined it, then that's when he started to galvanize and plan and, plot. Of course, everybody's worst part with that movie was when that kid went and snitched. Man, I never wanted to reach through a screen so bad and just like, that kid, he ruined the whole thing. And they was on the right track. Like, they was going in, like they had everything set up. And I said, they probably would have been able to get away with it if he did not snitch. And I thought it was interesting with how they ended it. And they showed the kid grow up to be an adult, and he shed that one tear. I guess that was that one tear of regret, or that one tear of knowing he wasn't going to make it back alive when he went into that war. And then it cuts off because he probably knew that, that this was definitely the end for him. So yeah, Birth of a Nation was definitely, despite all the controversy that came upon Nate Parker, which should not have happened, the movie was still a good movie overall. And regardless, I just hate that it happened to him, because happened to him, because that movie right there was going to like literally put him into another stratosphere. And unfortunately, with what happened, it happened, but you can't go back in time and change any of that. But yeah. Before we actually get out of here, I actually wanted to show the people what the website looked like. The Stream
I wanted to talk about the website
the
too.
Stream DMV website looked like.
Well, Stream DMV, Stream DMV is a Black-owned streaming service, which they plan on having an app sometime this year, but it's a website right now. The brother Awesome Amin, who plays my character's best friend, he plays Lante and the Eternal Extra. He and his wife are the ones who created Stream DMV, along with some other Black folks. And it's called Stream DMV because all the content on this website is from, filmmakers, producers from the DMV area, from DC, Maryland, and Virginia. for the most part black. I think they're all black right now.
Yeah.
Content creators on there. Now, the subscription, if you want to see everything on there, is $5.99 a month. But for those who may just want to see my film, The Eternal Extra,
Which is
you
right
don't
here.
have to you don't have to subscribe if you don't want to. They give you the option to rent. So if you want to rent my film and don't subscribe, if you don't want to subscribe, but I do encourage you to subscribe to support others. But if you don't, if you just want to watch my film, they give you the option to rent my film for $3.99. And you don't have to subscribe. You can just rent my film for $3.99, which really helps me out because you know, everybody who the more people who go rent my film, I can get like a little something from that. But of course, it
Right.
takes a lot of people to go do that because I only get a cut of that, right? They get
Yeah.
some of it and I get some of it. So I
Most
need people to
definitely.
go check it out.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
like how the site is definitely set up. It
Yeah.
definitely is very, it looks very interactive. Like this, like when I logged on, when you gave me the website and then I saw this, I said, oh, I like this. And I like
Yeah.
that, that there's a streaming service for films and shows or whatever for that's just for this area. So I think
Yeah.
that's a dope concept because you got your Netflixes and Hulu. Listen, ever since the pandemic, streaming has literally taken off. Like it's hard to
Hmm.
keep up. It's so many streaming platforms, but I think that this is definitely a good deal. $5.99. That's nothing,
Right.
like compared to the more mainstream uh platforms. And what I like about it is that it says it's DMV, and anyone who knows the demographic of this area, it's mainly black, so that's mainly what you're going to see on here. And I like how it's broken up. You got your shows, series, movies, other content, and documentaries, so it's a little bit of something for
It's something for
everybody.
everybody. Yeah, definitely. And the goal is that, like you were talking about Atlanta earlier, like being like the Black Hollywood. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the things that myself and others like Brother Awesome Amin and so forth talk about the fact that we have a whole lot of talent in the DMV, particularly a
Yep,
whole lot of
definitely.
black talent in the DMV. And there's no reason why we can't do the same thing that they did in Atlanta here.
Exactly. It definitely can
So
be
just
possible. I think what it might actually take, like I was saying earlier, is because Tyler Perry was a huge reason as to why the Atlanta acting scene really blew
mhm.
up. Because if you really want to be honest, he was the one that really kind of kicked all of that off. And now
Yeah.
Marvel Studios has a whole studio down there
Hmm.
where they shoot a lot of their Marvel films. There's a lot of Netflix shows that film there, such as Stranger Things,
Yeah.
that films down there. So I think, Tyler Perry, in my opinion, was a huge reason as to why they did that. As a matter of fact, they actually gave him the nickname of the Black Walt Disney.
Yeah, he
So
he did. He
yeah,
spearheaded that. Yeah.
I said, despite how we may feel about, Tyler Perry, you can't knock the hustle, and that man's
Right.
hustle is massive. But
Right.
yeah, I think what it might actually take is it's going to have to take someone on, maybe not on a Tyler Perry level, but
Hmm.
somebody who is big from this
Yeah.
area, helping to push this area out there in order for that to happen. And then before you know it,
Hmm.
more stuff can start shooting here. Because I remember, like, I think like only a couple movies shot here. I think the last big movie
Hmm.
that shot in this area, more so in DC than anything, was Wonder Woman 1984.
Okay.
And that was back in
I remember. Yeah.
2019. I
Yeah.
think, no, 2019. It was like that. It was
Hmm.
like the summer of 2019. And I remember they actually literally were shooting down. When I say shooting in throughout DC, we're talking about Georgetown,
Yeah.
down there on Freedom Plaza. For those who don't know what Freedom Plaza is, that's like right there parallel to the
Hmm.
Capitol and all of that good stuff. But I think that was like the last major movie, the
Right.
last major big studio movie that shot in this area. But if you compare that to Atlanta, it's content constantly
Hmm.
coming out of there. And that's what we feel this area deserves, because it's like you get your wires every blue moon. You get
Right.
your other shows for every like few quarters or years, but you would want something that is more consistent, that is always happening here, or we're to the point where people would want to come and film something here. But I think also too is because you got to think in this area is very political. It's so close to the White House. It's so close to the president. It's a lot of stuff going. It's a lot of stuff, and then you got to think about permits, taxes. It's a lot. It's a lot. So you got to think it also can be very expensive to shoot here. So that's another reason why a lot of people don't like to mess with it. It's not that they don't want to, it's because it's just so, like, financially wise, it can tear a hole in your pockets.
Right. Well, one of the brothers who has a project on here is called Black Therapy. His name is Naeem Freeman, and I actually appeared in a couple of episodes of Black Therapy the first season, and he says my character's supposed to be coming back at some point.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, but what happened was that the people that were involved in my storyline, one of the people wasn't in town anymore, but she supposedly came back. So he was saying that, my character would be coming back. He has like his own studio space, where he shoots his stuff at. So, so he don't really have to worry about, that's just like something specific, like he has to go to a club and stuff like that, or like a club scene or a church scene he may have to find. But like for like regular stuff where he can like set up like a living room or a kitchen look or whatever, stuff like that, he can do that in his studio, And Black Therapy is on there.
I don't know. Are you familiar with the show that's on HBO right now called The Last of Us?
No.
Okay, well, it's a show that's based off of a video game, dealing with like it's like a post-apocalyptic type of world, and then it's being overran like by like zombie type characters, and the humans that's literally the title, The Last of Us. But they just had an episode that aired on this past Friday. I think it was Friday. They didn't air it on Sunday, which day it usually comes on because of the Super Bowl. But one of the actors in that episode is a little black boy who's actually deaf in real life. He's from Maryland.
Okay.
And he actually I think they say he also plays on one of the little local Maryland hockey teams as well. So he's multi-talented. You got a deaf actor who's playing hockey. I said that's a lot. I said that's a lot of talent going on right there. And I don't think the kid he's probably at least 10.
Wow.
So yeah, he's very young, and he did a very good job in the episode. And I think it's very interesting when people who maybe have a disability, such as being deaf or maybe blind, and how they act against people who are not, and how they can convey it, because you get to see the emotion there, and they have to do it through signing. So I think that's very interesting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I said there's a lot of talent.
Oh yeah,
that comes from this area.
I've talked about this before on Facebook, and I've talked about it some on other people's podcasts and stuff, and on my own podcast, which I haven't done in a while, called the C Note. But I'm a person with a disability. My disability is not naked. Is not visible to the naked eye. I suffered a brain injury as a child.
Okay.
A severe brain injury, and I was told, since I've been grown. But they did CAT scans and they did an MRI. I was told, several years ago that I wasn't going to be able to achieve anything because according to the doctors, they said half my brain is damaged, right?
Yeah.
Now, it affects me in certain ways, but it doesn't stop me. It affects certain things, but it definitely does not affect my intelligence, and it may affect my nerves sometimes and stuff like that. But I haven't let that stop me. I could have listened to what those doctors said to me and just gave up, but I didn't do that. I didn't let that get in the way of what I've been called to do.
Exactly.
So
I like, and the thing is, I like stories like that. I like triumph stories, like like that underdog story. Where someone came from, nothing, and they made something out of nothing, and look at where they are now. Those are some of the best stories to hear, because it's like a victory. Like
definitely.
It's easy to talk about people who already have it, but it's like that's a boring story. Like you didn't
Right.
really like work for it. It was kind of like handed to you. And so I always like hearing stories about people who had to get it out the mud and then turned it into whatever type of paradise or whatever they wanted to call it, and see where it has gone from there and where it can grow,
Yeah.
say generations from now when that person is long gone, and see
Right.
where it's at like 20, 30, 50, maybe even 100 years into the future.
Yeah. I've had to fight to overcome a lot of obstacles, but I haven't let that stop me. And I wanted to say something right quick about the film festival in Brooklyn, New York, which is ran by a sister by the name of Drika Armstrong. That's the film festival out of Brooklyn, New York, the Strong Chance Film Festival that my film, The Eternal Extra, it won 2 awards in that film festival.
Okay.
Um, it won Best Short Film Award. It also won the Audience Choice Award. And
Mm.
though,
That sounds like a good one to have, because that means the people chose that.
yeah, definitely. And the reason why those particular awards mean so much to me is because of uh, the material, my film, what it's about, that it won. You know, the fact
Mm-hmm.
that my film is about trying to be thought provoking and empower Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that means a lot to me. And it also came from a Black festival too. So that's why those awards mean something to me, you know.
Cool. But yeah, we've been on for almost over an hour and a half. I said,
Yeah, I
it's
know.
amazing, like, how when conversations just happen, like
Right.
you lose, a time is almost like time isn't even a factor. But I'm
Yeah.
definitely glad that you were able to come on. I'm glad you reached out to me, and I'm glad that we were able to have this discussion. I learned a little bit more about you and and your
Yeah.
endeavors, what you have coming up in the future. Definitely keep me up to date on that one film
I will.
that you're working on, because I'm locked in just based on just a little bit that you gave about what it is that's going to be. But tell the people, before we get out of here, where they can find you, like social media wise.
Okay. As far as Instagram, well, I ain't gonna name all those pages because I got like I got like 4 pages on Instagram. You know, the one that I've been communicating with you on is called God Taze,
Hmm.
like the word God, God, and
Hmm.
then Taze, like the last 5 letters of my first
Yeah.
name,
Hmm.
uh, Godtaise, and then it's
Yeah.
underscore actor underscore singer underscore writer. So that's
Hmm.
Godtaise underscore actor underscore singer underscore writer. And then one more on Instagram is Carltaise Ransom underscore films.
Yeah.
It's Carltaise Ransom underscore films. And if you do want to check out my podcast, it's the C Note on Instagram. Uh, the C Note is on Instagram. So yeah, so that's how I can be reached. And on Facebook, it's just Carltaise Ransom. It's
Yeah.
Carltaise Ransom is my regular profile, and then I also have Carltaise Ransom Films on Facebook as well,
Okay, cool.
without the
And
underscore.
And I'll be sure to put the links to the pages down there. That way, y'all don't have to try and go like type it in or try to, find it and everything like that. I'll also leave the link to the stream, dmv.com service down there. Make sure y'all go ahead and subscribe to that. It's only
Yeah,
five
please
ninety nine a
subscribe.
month or
Yeah,
$3.99 if you want to just
yeah,
rent. If the $5.99 might not be enough for you, if it's just one particular film that you would want to check out. Also, one more question. If people say that they live in the area, wanted to maybe try out or be a part of any project that you have coming up, how would they go about doing that?
well, they could email me at carltaiseransomfilms@gmail.com. That's all together. Carltaise Ransom Films with an S at the end of film
Hmm.
at gmail.com.
Cool. So y'all heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad that you were able to come on. We had this is a very dope discussion. Hopefully, the next time you come on, it'll be able to discuss that film. Because I'm definitely looking forward to it. You haven't even shot anything for it yet. It's just a
Which
concept.
one? Is it the one with the white gaze?
Yes,
Or okay.
that one. That
Because I
one.
didn't know if you were
Yep.
talking about the one with Sean Bell and all of them too, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Whenever that happens, I definitely want to see that,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
talk to you again to talk about that particular film. I'm sure people who are listening right now will want to check that out as well. But
Okay.
yeah,
Will do.
but definitely I'm gonna go ahead and let you go, because I know that you have some more stuff that you got to work on. You are a busy individual. You got to have, you got them juices, them creative juices just flowing up there, trying to get everything put together. But I'm glad we had this discussion.
Me too, brother. I appreciate you inviting me on. It's been a great conversation. I didn't know we was going to be going this long either, but it's been a really
Yeah,
great conversation. A
I'm
lot of
glad.
important things were said.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when we have discussions, I don't like to try to cut it short, because it's like, then you look back at it and it's like, I wish I would have said this, or I would have wish I would have asked that. But I think at this point, we pretty much covered as much as we can.
Right, we did, definitely.
All right. Well,
it's been a very good, thorough conversation. Definitely.
Exactly. With that being said, to everybody who is watching out there, y'all have a good one, and I will talk to you in the next one.